Cooper here. We're going to get started on our paper mache project. So I'm going to show you what you need to get started making a paper mache Wilbur to go with our story Charlotte's Web. So the first thing you need to do is gather your materials. But the things that you're going to need are one balloon blown up and tied. You're going to need something to work in. So I recommend a shoebox or some kind of tray so that your balloon's not going to roll around. You need to get some newspaper and some glue and some type of a container that you can put your glue and water in. So I'm just using an old container. Pick something old, not something new in your house. So that's what you need to get started. It's a messy project, so I recommend that you put on some old clothes or an apron to protect your clothes and lay down either a tablecloth or some old newspapers or even a garbage bag. You can lay that down on your surface area so that you don't make a huge mess for your moms and dads. We don't want it. Next thing that you're going to need to do is rip a bunch of newspaper. So I have some already torn here. This is about 1 inch wide and that's the perfect size. So you just want to take some newspaper and just rip it into strips. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, just rip a whole bunch of strips until you have a nice pile. About this much is good. The thing to remember is make sure you're using newspaper, the actual paper, and you don't want to use the advertisements that are kind of shiny and that are more coated in plastic because they won't stick as well. Okay, and the other thing is you want to make sure that if you have a really super long piece like this one, that you want to just tear it in half. Okay, so about half the length of a newspaper is just the right amount. The next thing that you're going to do is make your glue. So I have filled this glue container, this little container, with about 1/4 of a cup of glue, and I'm just going to add some water to it and then mix it up. And you want to make sure that it's a little bit watery. It will be about the consistency of milk, okay? But it'll still be sticky and it'll work really well. So it should be more watery than glue, but not so watery that you can see right. We begin. And what I'm going to do is take one of my pieces of newspaper and dunk it in my glue. And you'll notice I'll hold it over the glue and run your fingers down right over your container so that the excess drips off in your container. And then I'm going to lay my piece of paper across the balloon. You want to make sure that you push it down so that it doesn't get any little bumps or bubbles, and then you move on to the next piece. When you're working, it's best to make a crisscross pattern all around your balloon, and that'll make your balloon stronger so that when it dries and the balloon starts to shrink inside, it's not going to pull your pig apart. So keep working in a crisscross pattern all around your balloon. You can see that. This part where the balloon is tied is actually going to be the snout of your pig. So you're probably not going to get it perfectly covered, but that's okay. Just cover it the best you can. And you want to keep going and rotating until your balloon is totally covered. Now, the thing to remember when you're working with this balloon is that less is more. So less glue is better. You can always add more glue onto your balloon, but if your balloon is really, really wet, it's going to take a long time for it to dry. So don't worry about using tons and tons of glue. Make sure you're wiping it off just like I did each time I take a strip. Take a strip, wipe off the excess, and then crisscross it onto your balloon. Keep going until you can't see any more of your balloon showing through the newspaper. And a shortcut that somebody tries every year, taking a paper like this and dunking it in and trying to lay it down on your balloon will not work. What will happen is it will dry and it will peel off, and then your pig will get ruined. So don't try to take a shortcut, okay? Make sure you're using the small strips and doing them one by one, and you'll be done in no time. Working around my balloon. And each time you add a strip, I recommend turning your balloon just a little bit so you're not working on one section at a time. You're working all around the balloon. And if you notice, I have my little tip here and it's not totally covered, and that's okay if you don't get it totally covered, because like I said, it's going to become the snout of your pig. And here's what it will look like when it's finished. It's actually going to be covered with a little piece. So you won't see that bump anyway. So that's okay if you don't get it totally covered. But take a strip, put it on your balloon and then rotate your balloon a little bit. And if your balloon starts to get too wet, if you've put a little bit too much glue on, that's okay. Just take a dry piece of paper and you can lay it on the wet spot of your balloon and just pat it down, and then that'll soak up the rest of the extra glue. So my pig is totally covered. If you look it over, you can't see any of the balloon showing through other than where the snout would be. I got it all covered. And if you find a spot that's starting to lift on your balloon, just pick it up and you can press it back down. If a spot feels really, really loose, I would take it off and just do that part again, because you want it to be pretty tight down. It's not going to be perfectly smooth, but it should still look like the shape of the balloon when you started. So now the next step is you want to let your balloon dry, and depending on the weather, depending where you put it, it might take a full day, it might actually take 2 days. So pick a spot where you can put your pig. It's a sunny day today, so I'm actually going to put my pig outside and let it dry out in the sun. I would put it in some type of container, either in your shoebox or a tray, something so it doesn't blow away. And you want to go out and check it every few hours and turn it, because if it sits in just one spot, when you pick it up tomorrow, the spot underneath will probably still be a little bit wet. So go out and every few hours, just rotate your pig, turn it around so the sun can dry your pig. And if it's not a sunny day, if it's a rainy day, you can leave it inside, it'll still dry. If you have a fan in your house, you can put a fan angled on your pig so that it'll dry for you.